conducted over 40 webinars and workshops globally, hosted 30 webinars exclusively in Thai. Today, we have more than 5,000 active QV members from various countries. We partner with top universities, research institutions, and academic bodies to support our mission. QV webinars and workshops, an engaging learning platform. We cover topics like research writing and journal selection, with international experts offering valuable insights. Our workshops are tailored to meet the academic needs of different regions. Webinars in Thailand, tailored for the Thai academic community, covering topics like manuscript writing and publication strategies, with a strong member base fostering collaboration. Our vision is to support researchers in achieving excellence, bridging gaps in the publication process and quality services, and fostering a global academic community of collaboration. Get in touch with QB for proofreading, editing, and Scopus journal support. Follow us for updates on webinars and workshops. Visit our website or contact us for more information. Thank you for watching.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, yes, you can start now, Shali.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, sure. So let me share my screen. Okay. It's almost 1 p.m. in Malaysia, 10:30 in India, I suppose. So very good morning, good day to everyone. Good afternoon to those in Malaysia and Thailand. I think we can start now. It's almost 1. Perhaps after a few.
Hello, doctor.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. Shall I give you an introduction about our webinar?
All right. It's up to you. Go ahead. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, doctor.
No problem. You are sharing your WhatsApp messages, Miss, on the screen.
Join it.
Okay, I will just wait for you to let me start, yeah? Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Uh,
Am I audible now?
yes.
Yes, thank you, doctor.
Mm.
Greetings to all the participants present here. On behalf of QA Research and Publications, I would like to welcome you all for the webinar on Steps in Writing a Research Proposal, Tips to Avoid Common Mistakes. To start with, let me give you a brief introduction about QA Research and Publications. QA serves as a platform to publish research articles in prominent journals and conferences proceedings. We assist authors in publishing their research findings in high impact factor journals, promoting their work, enhancing their reputation, and building a strong scientific profile. Among several indexing databases, Scopus is one of the most preferred for publishing articles. The wide recognition and impact of these journals make them highly valued in their academic careers. We have recently collaborated with the Scopus Q1 journal, that is F1000 research published by Taylor and Francis. The authors can now easily submit their articles through a partnered gateway with FN1000. FN1000 Research is an open research publishing platform for scientists, scholars, and clinicians that offers rapid publication of articles and other research outputs without editorial bias. All articles benefits from transparent peer review and editorial guidance on making all source data openly available. Now, I would like to welcome our speaker, Dr. Mansoor Amini, who is an interdisciplinary researcher and a senior lecturer from the School of Languages, Literacies and Translation, University Sains, Malaysia. He has a diploma in mathematics and physics, a BA in English language and literature, a MA in English language teaching, and a PhD in translation studies. He has published over 100 articles in translation, education, humanities, and social sciences, and he is the principal investigator of several research projects. He has conducted workshops, seminars, and talks on thesis writing and research methodology in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Iran, and China. Dr. Mansoor Hamini is a reviewer, editing manager, and the editorial board member of several academic journals. He had tried to link research with teaching practice by applying the lessons learned from authentic research outputs to teaching scenarios. Now, I would like to welcome you again, Doctor. You may start the webinar now.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss, for the warm welcoming and a good day to everyone. So, without further ado, I'm gonna start a talk, which is about steps in writing a research proposal, tips to avoid common mistakes. That is my email address, mansoor@usm.my. I'm from the School of Languages, Literacies and Translation, University Science, Malaysia, and that is my ResearchGate profile. I assume you will receive the slides later, so you can have a look at the content and my contact details as well. So the idea of this talk or workshop came to my mind when I noticed that we can have a error analysis approach towards writing the proposals, right? We can avoid those mistakes in order to enhance the quality of our research, especially the proposal at the proposal stage, when we are suggesting an idea and we are waiting for the panel to approve of our idea. So I'm going to talk on several important aspects and several important problems that we should avoid, or we should at least try to avoid, to lessen the impacts of being rejected, proposal being rejected, or heavily criticized. All right. The number one problem that I can mention here, or the mistake that often, especially novice researchers make, is that the topic that they choose, right, has very little impact. This is a major issue. Like when the examiners ask the students, the PhD students and master students, what is the significance of your study, or what is the novelty of your study? So, or what is the impact of your study? Now, impact is a key criterion of a good research, right? Because we want to eventually learn something from the findings. Not only just learn, we also want to apply them in real life situations, right? In authentic context. Now, this impact actually can be about the people. That means, for example, you can have some implications for the, let's say, in educational context, for the students, for the teachers, or policymakers. If it's industry, for those people, or for different communities, different societies, and so on. In order to have a good, impactful research, I have listed down some items that we can go through. Number one, having a clear and relevant research problem. Okay. A lot of cases, like myself, even when I examine, I notice that the research proposal, yeah, there are so many pages and so on, but when you ask the student, what is the major problem that you are trying to solve, usually or often they don't have a very clear answer. Okay, like they just usually say, yeah, there's a gap in the literature, or yeah, there is not enough study about this topic. But we should bear in mind that gap in the literature is just a minor problem. And the logic is that there are millions of gaps out there. What makes our topic so important, so special, right? So one tip that I can give, which is very simple to think about and consider, is just ask yourself, so what? Yeah. Just when you have confirmed your topic, your title, just ask yourself, so what? If I'm going to conduct this and I finish and I analyze everything, eventually, what would be the impact theoretically and practically? This is very important. Now, this is a common mistake that is often neglected, like especially in, let's say, for example, in linguistics research or my fields, right? There's a lot of micro level research, but the application side is not so strong. So this is heavily criticized. Now, second one, compelling research questions, well-defined objectives, strong theoretical framework, methodological rigor, significance, literature review quality, and feasibility and scope, finally, considering ethical matters. Now, I will talk about each of these one by one, and I'll try to explain as much as our time allows. A tip that I can add here is trying to add significance to our study or add impact to our study by linking our topic to one of the SDGs, yeah, Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. For example, SDG 4 is about quality education. Let me show you this one. We have 17 SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. The more our research can be linked to any of these, one or two or three of these, at least one, the more we can claim that our study is more significant, is more impactful, right? This is also sometimes, or in many cases, forgotten or neglected in many PhD theses or master dissertations and so on. Another advice can be trying to link our topic to, our discipline or area of research to other disciplines. For example, maybe you are a researcher in psychology and you can collaborate with a researcher in education, right? That will be educational psychology research. Or you are in sociology, then you want to collaborate with someone in language. That will be sociolinguistic, right? Something that can cross between the disciplines and between the areas. And the logic is very simple. Obviously, because you are going to have more audience, all right, then of course you're going to have more impact on the society, on the people that they are going to read it, including any element of technology, such as technology tools, AI tools, or science-related or social science-related disciplines, and connecting to these areas would add to the value of our research. Another point is that sometimes the impact on communities is neglected. Again, to me, this is a mistake because, like, anyway, any kind of research we do, we should think about the benefit it could potentially have for some people, right? Otherwise, why do we need to do the research? What kind of benefit is going to be achieved at the end by doing this research? So one example can be benefits for some, let's say, minorities or underprivileged communities, or some specific communities that are less explored, or as I said, maybe underprivileged, yeah, or yeah. The more like gap, or the more kind of the more gaps that you can find, obviously, the better the quality of your research. Please excuse me for my sore throat. I'm having a terrible flu today. It's been a few days. All right, let's continue. The next is about the collaborative potential, especially with the industry people, right? Or industrial organizations. Next is about scalability and adaptability. For example, application is in different contexts, right? All right, we come to the other important aspect that causes us to make mistakes, yeah, in terms of topic selections. That means we might choose topics that are less significant, or basically people do not care so much about them, right? In simple words. Like what kind of topics? The topics that are already old-fashioned or outdated, or maybe they are too cliche, or they are too theoretical, too abstract, without any tangible practical implications for the societies and so on. Now, in order to avoid this kind of mistake in the topic selection stage, one important thing that we need to pay attention is the gap or the problem statement that we are going to address. So obviously, the more important the gap that we want to solve, the more significant the problem that we want to solve, the better the topic that we are choosing. All right, you get what I mean? Because, like, as I said, every gap is just a minor problem. Any gap is just a minor problem, because any research must solve an actual problem. Now, a funny thing is that I was reading this sentence that a good research finds a solution to a problem, a bad one finds a problem for a solution. Like, this really happens in many cases. Like, the research is conducted by your field is kind of redundant, or it's kind of repetitive. It's like the researcher is trying to find a problem for a solution that already exists, right? So second one, in terms of feasibility, This kind of mistake at feasibility stage is when we are too ambitious. We think that we can collect data, maybe especially in mixed method designs. You have so much hopes, but when it comes to actual data collection and analysis stage, we face serious issues. Now, as a good researcher, we have to actually estimate and measure these aspects to not face feasibility issues or problems. Next is about the interest and passion. Interest and passion, of course, is very important in topic selection. A big mistake would be choosing a topic that you don't really like, but you just feel you want to do to, complete and get your certificate, right? But I would always strongly recommend and advise my students to go for topics that they are really interested in, because it's a long journey, especially in PhD. And if we are not really interested about the topic, we are going to face serious issues. We might lose the motivation, and we might even give up. Yeah. So don't choose a topic that you don't like. Yeah. Choose a topic that you really are passionate about. Next is about the current trends. Obviously, this kind of mistake happens when we choose very outdated models or theories or outdated techniques or any modules that they're already, forgotten. But then suddenly we take that outdated trend and we want to study again. So this can be heavily criticized by the examiners, by the reviewers, saying that like this is very old. Why you not go for trendy topics, yeah, like the latest ones? So the advice for this one would be always read the latest publications. By latest, of course, we mean at least not older than 5 years. Yeah, the papers that are published within the last 5 years, ideally within the last 3 years. My ideal is last 3 years, actually, because of course, when we look at the research outputs, there are a lot of updates in the same field even. So we have to stick to the latest updates, and we adapt our approach to that. Yeah. Next one is about originality. Now, I get this question a lot, like, can I conduct a similar study, a study that has been done in another country? Can I do the same in my country? Usually this could be acceptable for master's level, but not for PhD level. I mean, conducting the exact same study in a PhD level. This could be, I mean, a bit problematic, right? Because in PhD, you need to discover something more in depth. You need to have some originality. Some refer to this word as novelty. Yeah, they're going to ask you, what is the novelty of your research? What do you produce? What do you offer as something new to the readers? Yeah. So we have to consider this. Do not forget about the novelty of research. It's a key aspect. And last one, alignment with the expertise. Of course, considering all these factors, make sure that it aligns with your expertise. For example, if you are good at numbers, you are a quantitative researcher, make sure that you choose a design and align your expertise with that. On the other hand, if you're a qualitative researcher, so you don't like numbers, you don't know how to use SPSS or PLS, right? So if you want to do only quali and you're good at quali, then align your design, your research philosophy, and your research methods with that. It's okay. A researcher can be a qualitative researcher or quantitative researcher or mixed method researcher, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, it's not necessarily compulsory for a researcher to know both. It is, of course, commendable. It is good if one knows both, but we do have many researchers who are qualitative or quantitative researchers. Of course, those who are mixed method researchers know both, yeah? Okay, next, about one point about expertise. This is also related to the common mistake as you saw in the title of my my topic, right? The title of my talk today. Expertise is, what is expertise? Okay, like a lot of in many situations we want to have our analysis expert validated, okay? But then when we look at the qualification or the quality of the validation, right? Or the qualification of the people who validate the results is kind of questionable because the criteria, the selection criteria are not defined so clearly or so objectively. So this is important, yeah? We can have very clear and standard selection criteria for the experts. Now, for experts, always we have to refer to certified people, qualified people. Don't simply, because nowadays everyone can simply call them experts. And especially in academia, I've seen a lot. So I mean, we have to verify and validate their expertise and go for the best one. Like, for example, if you're creating or adapting a questionnaire, right? You want to reuse it. If you can reach out to the person who originally developed that questionnaire and share your ideas with them and apply their comments in your questionnaire adaptation, or even, you know, if you just want to make major changes to their questionnaire. So if they are still around and they are willing to help, that's ideal. Okay, this is just an example, but what I mean overall is that a big mistake would be approaching the wrong people and using them as experts. This will lead to not only big problems in the methodology, but also in the findings and the rigor of the research methodology. Next, I'm gonna move to slide number 6, which is what is a good title and how many words. Now, this could be a bit subjective, but like normally good titles are between, I mean, around 12 words, yeah, around 12 words. In many books, I've seen this. But if it's a little bit longer than this or shorter than this, it's okay. There is no strict rule that you must follow, that as long as it is not too overwhelming to the reader, not too overwhelming, that means not too much information in the title, but or too short to the extent that it sounds too generic, right? So it has to be reasonable in what sense? Number one, a title should show your overall purpose of the study or the general aim of the study, okay? Overall purpose or aim. And also somehow we can guess the methodology based on your title. I can tell the methodology from even the action verb that you use in the title. For example, if your verb is exploring something, we can easily tell that this is a qualitative research. On the other hand, when you say examining something or assessing something, this is definitely a quantitative research, yeah? So the action verb, the other than action verb, we can also have the keywords. The keywords, that means the main variables of the study, if it's a quantity or mixed method. If not, if it's a qualitative research design, we can use the constructs or concepts in the title. Okay, so these are the important parts. So guessing the purpose, guessing the overall design, and also the main variables to include in the title. One common mistake that I've seen, in fact, is that I see redundant words in the title. Yeah. For example, an investigation of. Of course, any PhD thesis, any study is an investigation of something, right? Or a study of. I don't understand why people have this. So try to avoid the unnecessary words in the title because the title actually is supposed to be very short and concise, not short necessarily, concise and brief in a sense that is comprehensive yet concise. So let's read this part. A good title should convey the essence of the study without overwhelming the reader, as I said, and it should include the keywords such as the variables to reflect the main focus and the context of research. Okay, this one also can be included in the title. For example, the country or the type of the participants, let's say among EFL learners, if we are talking about English language learning, or among some type of participants, yeah, type of participants, and then context or country or community. So these are the main parts. Other than this, usually the title does not need anything more than this. Okay, let's have a look at these ones. Let's speculate on these and think why these are considered good and impactful titles. I give you a few seconds to read this and I drink some water. Excuse my voice. All right, let's have a look at the first one. Exploring the role of AI in personalized medicine, ethical implications, and healthcare outcomes. All right, it's good and impactful. I don't think there's any error in this title because it conveys the purpose. The variables are there. We can see the action verb explore, and it's quite concise, right? Or the third one, evaluating the effects of digital transformation on workplace, productivity, and well-being in post-pandemic era. This is also high chance that this one, this number 3, is a quantitative research based on the action verb evaluating the effects. Okay, I mean, we have the terminology in different research designs that we use. In quantitative, we use the words effect and impact, while in qualitative, we use the word influence usually. So other than that, you can see that there are variables here as well, like digital transformation and workplace productivity. So we have the independent variable and dependent variable here, and also the time, the context, post-pandemic era. But this one didn't mention about the place, yeah? So probably this is a generic one. Okay, this is an example of a bad title. A study on the analysis of several health and fitness issues in a community in South America. Now, why this one is a bad title? Number one, because it has a lot of redundant words. A study on the analysis of. This is totally redundant. No need for this. So, several health and fitness issues. So, what several? Which ones actually? This is too ambiguous, right? And issues. What is issue actually? In a community, so here the community has to be specified instead of just saying in a community vaguely, right? So because the title has to be very specific. Okay, this is like related to the background of the study, how to write the background of the study in a proposal. Starting with a contextual overview, then moving on to historical background, current landscape, relevant literature, research gap identification, and rationale for the study. All right, so I've provided one example for each, item, but all these subsections on the background of the study doesn't have to be like labeled as subsection. They can be like 1 or 2 paragraphs each. You know, like for contextual overview, you can have 2 paragraphs, then 2 paragraphs for historical background, 2 paragraphs for current landscape, and so on. All right. But example of each you can see, like for contextual overview, example, in recent years, the rapid rise of digital communication has transformed social interaction patterns worldwide, raising new questions about privacy, misinformation, and psychological well-being. Apologies. Second one, about historical background. Since the invention of the internet, digital communication platforms have evolved from simple email exchange to complex social media ecosystems. This evolution has shifted the way people communicate, impacting social structures and culture norms. Current landscape, today, social media plays an influential role in shaping public opinion, but it also raises concerns about echo chambers and the spread of misinformation. The rest you can read by yourself, right? So what I'm trying to highlight here is the components, is the factors that we need to consider in writing the first part of chapter 1, right? Which is the background of the study usually. So contextual overview, I repeat, historical background, current landscape, relevant literature, research gap identification, and rationale for the study. Now, but what if we have a separate section for a problem statement? Then you don't need to have the research gap identification in this section, all right? Because different schools or different journals have different formats, okay? So in writing thesis also the same, right? But if you have a separate section for problem statement, then you don't need to state the gap in background. You just talk about the context and the other aspects that I mentioned here. Okay, so based on based on this background of the study, the examples that I provided for you, right? Can we guess what is the proper title for that study? Can we propose some titles? I'll give you a few seconds to think. And you can type your answers in the chat box if you want. Okay, let's see. A sample answer, like digital communication and mental health, a study on leveraging social media for psychological resilience. Now, the reason I colored a study on, because if you take these words out, then the meaning will not change. Yeah, that is what I mean by redundant words. Yeah, in the title. That means if you take them out, if you remove them, nothing happens. Okay. Second one, promoting psychological resilience through digital communication, exploring the positive potential of social media. This can also be another sample title for the background that I showed you just now. Okay, now let's move on to the next part, which is about problem statement. Yeah, a major mistake done by students or novice researcher is that they simply think that just saying there are not sufficient studies on a topic is enough for problem statement, or this topic is not studied before. Of course, that if this topic is studied before, you wouldn't need to do that, right? Why would you do that if the topic was not studied? So yes, you're trying to highlight the gap, and that's fine, but that could be a minor issue, okay? And the reason I mentioned already, because there are millions of gaps out there. You have to justify why this particular gap is so important and it's worth studying. This can be either by justifying its implications or its potential significance and importance for different people, communities, societies, you know, for improving life, or linking to one of the SDGs that I showed you earlier, right? Improving in some aspect. So anyways, in writing the problem statement, we can follow two models. One is the gap and its significance. This is the simpler one. And normally students follow this, like they say there's a gap in the literature, there's a niche, and my study is going to fill in that gap, right? Example, despite the significant use of social media, little is known about its potential benefits for mental well-being. Understanding this relationship could inform the design of healthier digital platforms. Now you need a source for this. That's why I put evidence there, because these are all imaginary examples that I've used AI to generate actually. But you can use some sentences like this and provide evidence, and that means citations for the sentence. The second model, which I personally favor because it's more clear-cut and it's more straightforward, is the ideal current consequence model. I always advise my students to follow this one. Why? Because it's a three-stage model that clearly elaborates and specifies what the problem is and what are the consequences of that. Now, this is based on three levels, right? Number one, ideal situation. That means what should be the ideal situation? When you are talking about, you want to talk about the problem, right? What would be the situation if the problem did not exist? Okay, this is the ideal situation. Example, ideally, digital platforms should enhance mental well-being. Citation. Okay, second one is the problem, current. Current means the current situation, therefore the problem, right? So, but currently, many users experience anxiety and self-esteem issues linked to social media use. Citation required. Okay, so this is a problem, right? So that's the second stage. Third one, which is the consequence. Consequence means the negative impact of continuation of this problem, right? The bad effect of not addressing the current problem, okay? So in this example, without research into positive digital design, these issues may worsen, impacting public health. Okay, again, citation. So as you see, for each stage, we do need citations and evidence. So they can be case studies, previous studies, whatever, or even they can be data from governmental or different organizations, even NGOs, as long as they are academic research or they are some reliable research, you can refer to them. You can rely on them, actually. All right. So uh, as I can just recap the problem related to writing statement of problem. Okay, what is the common mistake here? The common mistake is do not only talk about the gap. We do know that there is a gap. That's why you are doing that, and you have to prove that, by the way, that there is a gap. Because sometimes, actually, when you properly research, you Google properly in all the databases, you find very similar studies. That's very dangerous. Okay, we should try to avoid that. So anyway, do not just say that there's a gap, but also say why that gap is so important. And ideally, if you can talk about the consequences of not addressing the gap, you can improve on your problem statement. That means you are trying to tell the reader why your study is important and what major issue is going to solve. Yeah, this is what I mentioned earlier. Remember that gap is a minor problem if its significance is not justified well. Apologies. So not every gap qualifies to be filled, especially at PhD level, as there are millions out there. What makes yours so different or special? This is a serious question that we can ask, yeah? This is a table regarding the different types of gaps, which I usually share with my students as well, right? The different types of gaps. You can include this in your problem statement writing in chapter 1. Like the type of problems or the type of gap that your study is going to address. For example, when there is a practical knowledge gap or evidence gap or methodological gap. Methodological gap is very interesting as well. That means your research will offer some new methodological findings for the researcher, for the future researchers, for the readers, right? New methodological findings, such as, I don't know, proposing a new theory, proposing a new conceptual framework, something that is helpful for the future researchers in terms of methodological consideration. Like maybe there are a lot of studies on a certain topic, but most of them or all of them use quantitative research only. Okay, so but you explore the context, and then you decide to conduct a qualitative study using observation and interview and document analysis. So this can have some methodological gaps because you are trying to address almost similar issues or approach similar issues using a different way. Okay, methodology is about how we conduct a study, right? So if you use a different how, that means you have some novelty in terms of methodology. Others are empirical gap, theoretical gap, and population gap. Population gap means like you're trying to approach or include people in your study that are often underexplored. That means not so many studies are done on them, right? Usually about minority groups or, or certain ethnicities, certain age groups, and so on. So you can see all the references for each type of the gaps, and you can read more about them in your writings. But it's good to rely on these kind of sources to tell the reader, okay, after we say ideally the situation should be like that, but there is a problem and there is a consequence to that problem. However, my study is going to fill in this evidence gap or practical knowledge gap by addressing these issues and filling the gaps, okay? Now, some tips for writing an effective problem statement section, yeah? First of all, always clearly define the problem. One common mistake is using ambiguous language, all right? I call them, sometimes I call them poetic language. I'm not against poetry. My bachelor is in literature, but I usually, if the problem statement is a bit blur or ambiguous, I would say this is not research writing. This is poetry. This is storytelling, all right? We don't tell the stories in problem statement and generally research writing, okay? Because we want to be as objective as possible and as measurable as possible. The concepts that we are talking about, every single word that we include in our writing has to be measurable, has to be justifiable, or at least observable, right? If not measurable, that means not quantifiable, at least observable. That means operationalized. Just like sometimes you see some words in the text, in the proposal, you ask the student, so what does this mean? The other day I saw, the words personal growth. Okay, so I said, what's the definition of personal growth? How do you operationalize this in your writing? Then she had no idea. Okay, so this is a problem because these are terminologies, right? These have to be defined and operationalized and cited. Second one, contextualize the problem. If your study, for example, is in Malaysia, in China, in Thailand, whatever, try to get to the bottom of the situation that the study is in terms of context, the setting, the time, and the place, yeah? Because every context has different characteristics. So talking about the population, their ages, their other qualities will contribute to the clarification of the problem. Third is about evidence. Now, I can say evidence is mostly related to use of citations, good citations. By good, I mean papers that have been published in high-impact journals. You can also use dissertations and books, but for the problem statement section, usually we rely on the latest published papers in high-index journals. All right? Why? Because we are building our whole project on a problem, right? That's like the foundation of a building. So if that is not strong, then the whole thing is shaky, right? The whole project is shaky. So we have to make that clear. Next is about other than citation, yeah, before I forget, other than citation, we can actually use examples or case studies. Examples can also be a kind of evidence followed by logic, all right? But for observational cases, you need to provide some supporting documents such as screenshots, something that can prove that the observation is not just subjective or made up. Okay, maybe you are a teacher, you have observed a problem, so you have to somehow find a way to document that and then attach it as an appendix to your thesis. Next is about the impact of the problem, which we discussed. In the previous slide, it was related to the consequence of the problem, right? The impact of the problem, the negative side of not addressing the problem and the issue. The knowledge gaps and the purpose connection to the problem. Now, this last one, purpose connection, the problem, is also one of the common mistakes that happens in thesis writing as well. Now, what it means is that, okay, we are talking about certain objectives. Maybe we have 3 to 5 objectives. Usually in PhD, we have like 3 to 5 objectives, right? Or it can be more than that as well. But maybe less than 3, I haven't seen so far. But anyways, we have certain number of objectives and one general purpose. Remember, in every research, okay, in every proposal, we have one purpose or one aim. But that aim can be sub-classified into several objectives. Okay, objective is different from aim and purpose, all right? Aim and purpose is the umbrella term that covers the entire objectives altogether. Like 5 objectives align with one purpose of the study or one aim of the study, okay? That is one thing. Another thing is that we have to align our purpose to the problem statement. You have to align our purpose to the problem statement. Like, because the problem that I have seen, the mistake that I have seen is that problem is talking about something, then suddenly objective is talking about something else. All right? Or there are some very ambitious points in the problem statement, talking about the problems in the educational system of a country and so on. But then when you ask the student, so are you going to solve this educational system problems in your country? Say, no, I'm not going to. Then why are you talking about it? As the problem of your study. It's not in literature review. If it's in literature review, it's okay. But in the problem statement, you only talk about the thing that you are going to solve, okay? Anything beyond that is not related to you, especially to include in the problem statement section, all right? So linking the purpose statement or the objective to the problem statement is also very important. A lot of mistakes happen here and inconsistencies happen because of no connection or association between these. This is an example in developing the title of this is Developing an Ethical Framework for the Use of AI Tools in Academic Writing, Integrating Information Literacy and Educational Ethics. This is my own project, actually, it's under review. But I'm just using it as an example to give you more ideas about like how to classify, how to allocate each portion of information to each part, yeah? Excuse me. So for this one, the background for this topic, right? Of course, this is just one sentence, but you need much longer paragraphs, much longer pages, right? But the gist of the idea, background for this topic will be the use of AI tools in education settings, focusing on academic writing. So I'm gonna be talking about that in the background of my study, okay? A specific problem. Ethical concerns such as plagiarism, fairness, and data privacy are not sufficiently addressed. So this is the key point in my problem statement. Of course, it has to be longer than this. It has to have evidence and so on. Evidence and justification, reference to recent studies, blah, blah, and emphasizing the issue's importance, okay? And next one, gap in knowledge. You talk about lack of standardized ethical frameworks for AI in academic writing. So like for this particular study, when I was reviewing this literature, I noticed that actually there are a lot of frameworks out there, but not one particularly designed for the use of AI frameworks for academic writing in the language pairs that I have selected. So there's a gap in the knowledge. Then relevance, in the relevance or trying to link these ideas, essential for maintaining academic integrity and equitable learning. Or we can call this significance as well, like why this framework so important, right? What is so special about this supposedly to be developed framework? Last one, purpose statement. This framework proposes to create this proposal tries to create a conceptual framework for ethical AI use in academic writing, right? That's the general purpose. But under that, under that, you can have several objectives or even sub-objectives. All right, this is the example of extended version of what I showed here, okay? I just give you a few seconds to go through. I'm not gonna read because this is just an extended version of that. Maybe 30 seconds for you to go through this. The evidence, the one in brackets in blue, evidence means citations. So you need to provide citations for such sentences, all right? We don't need to provide citation for every single sentence in thesis writing because sometimes the examiners ask, where is your voice? But I don't think we can have any voice in the problem statement section, especially in chapter 1 generally. Keep your voice to chapter 5 and when it comes to discussion and so on, your own point of view. By voice, they mean your own point of view, right? But in writing chapter 1 especially, we are strongly advised to use as many sources as possible because we are trying to be very objective, right? And accurate. All right. So can everyone identify the different sections in this piece of writing? Yeah. From the background to the knowledge gap and the significance of addressing the gap, right? Like the last paragraph, despite this call, existing literature lacks a comprehensive framework. Yeah, this is gap, emphasizing the gap. Then followed by addressing this gap is critical to fostering a learning environment that leverages technology without compromising academic standards. So this sentence, addressing this gap is critical. This one is about the significance of the gap. All right. Pay attention that we need to talk about two types of significance. One is the significance of the study, right, in overall, right? Also significance of the problem statement. This is more specific. Significance of the study, you're talking about the whole study's importance. Significance of addressing this gap could be a bit more minor. Maybe you need to provide more detailed information about that. But they can overlap also. All right, let's move on. Next, in writing objectives. One common mistake in writing objectives is that the number of objectives are not tally with the number of research questions. Like you have 3 objectives, then 4 research questions. This is a mistake. It cannot be like this, yeah? Then the numbers should be tally. Another thing is that other than the numbers, in terms of content also, they should be tally. Like RQ1 should be tally with RO1. RQ2 should be in accordance with RQ2, right? RO2, RQ2, RO3, RQ3. So just like this. So we need to try to link the research objectives to research question. They should correspond, as I said, like RO1, RQ1, RO2, RQ2. Then they need to be clear and measurable. This is the most important part. Like every single word that we place in objectives and research question has to be absolutely measurable and clear. All right, don't put any ambiguous terms or unmeasurable terms or ambiguous concepts. All right, it has to be very clear and measurable. And also in writing the objectives, we should try to use proper verbs, yeah, action verbs, like as I said, like explore for qualitative, or maybe examine for quantitative. Some use investigate for both, yeah, or evaluate or assess or yeah, test, this kind of action word. Using the right action verb is important, and also pay attention to the value of each action verb, yeah. This is also important and often mistaken, because like the verb identify, okay, the word identify has a lower value in objectives than the verb describe, for example. The verb describe has a lower value based on Bloom's taxonomy of education, has a lower value than, let's say, the word analyze, okay? So the higher you go in terms of the level and the depth of the research objective, the more significant verbs you are going to use, yeah? The highest one, of course, is to design or to develop, to develop or design or create something. That's the highest level, right? Below that is analyze. Below that is describe. Below that is identify, okay? So this has to follow the same order. Usually it's top down, actually. Many researchers prefer to put the most important research question and objective at the beginning, then go to the less important ones. But this can be subjective. Like I personally prefer the other way around, but many books and researcher prefers to do it like from the most important objective to the least important objectives. Last one, broad and specific objectives. Start with a broad objective to capture the study's main aim, and then narrow down. Yeah, this is what is usually preferred based on the research books, okay? This is some example for the clear objectives. You can have a look, analyze current ethical challenges associated with the use of AI tools in academic writing. You see, including concerns about plagiarism detection, fairness, data privacy, and academic integrity. Another one, to examine the impact of using AI tools on EFL learners' academic writing. You see, the second one is, I mean, all of these are quite clear and straightforward and measurable, right? Like to examine, that's the verb, is the quantitative one. Impact, clear. Using AI tools, right? And that's the one of the variable, independent variable. Then EFL learners academic writing. So that is the effect or the dependent variable. So quite clear, yeah? Another one, to develop a comprehensive conceptual framework for the ethical and responsible use of AI tools in academic writing that incorporates perspectives from information literacy models and educational ethics. So this one is also clear because the main concepts are there. The verb is clear. The objective, I mean, the task that you want to complete is clear. You want to develop something, right? And it's quite measurable and clear. Yeah, this I already talked about a little bit, but you can have a look, and it's always good to use this kind of standardized verbs, right? Under create, you have those words: create, evaluate, analyze, apply, understand, remember, right? As you see, the highest level here is the creation. So if you want to have a very impactful research, go for creation. You want a bit lesser value, evaluation, a bit less, at least analysis. I don't think we can have anything below analysis or application in PhD level, at least, right? But in writing papers, actually, maybe a review paper can go up to remember and understand, you know, just for the review. But when it comes to analysis, you reach analysis and above, analyze, evaluate, and create, you go to the 3 highest level. All right, next is research question. As I said, they need to be strictly in line with the research objectives, okay? Because actually we derive these questions based on the research objectives. In other ways, these are the questionable forms of the research objectives in many cases. So they are also supposed to be clear and focused. Sometimes the mistakes that I see here in research questions are grammatical mistakes. That's not good because we cannot make any mistake, especially in hypothesis or research question or research objective. Every word has to be very accurate, and we should know what we are talking about exactly. Yeah. So the research question should be clear and focused, derived from the problem statement and the objectives, and then open-ended if applicable, especially for qualitative research, yeah, exploratory kind of research. And then align with the methodology, okay? What does this mean? Like if your methodology, the research design I use is qualitative, then the questions that you are using should be in line with that one as well, right? So you cannot ask a yes/no question for a qualitative study, okay? And of course, some question words like how and why always have higher value than what questions. Okay, normally the examiners will ask why you only use what question. That's not enough, for a PhD level especially. And last one in writing research questions is the logical sequence. There should always be a logical sequence in arranging the order of the questions, yeah? Like, let's say if you are developing a framework or model or module or something, right? The event or a questionnaire, eventually that's the output. The instrument or framework, that's the output, right? So that should be at the end. That should be your final research question. Okay, so as long as there's a logic, not hanky-panky, one here, one there, jumping from here to there, right? We just want to see the clear steps that you reach to the end goal, the purpose of the study, or the output or outcome of the study, okay? Because every study has an outcome. Apologies. I'm having a terrible sore throat, so I'm trying to control it, but sometimes I have to cough. Sorry, yeah. So another one, examples of clear research question here is how is or what are the current ethical challenges associated with the use of AI tools in academic writing? This is qualitative. What is the impact of using AI tools on EFL learners' academic writing? Because we use the word impact, this is definitely going to be quantitative, right? Another one, mixed method. What valid and reliable framework could be developed for the ethical use of AI tools in academic writing that incorporates perspectives from information literacy models and education ethics? This should be answered using mixed methods. Why? Because in developing models and instruments or modules, we usually use a mixed method. Okay, we start with qualitative data, we gather them, and then we develop the instrument based on that, such as a questionnaire. Then we validate it again, and then we develop the model. But there are also other designs. Sometimes they go the other way around, or they embed in the research, yeah. But the normal one is exploratory sequential mixed method design for the development of instruments or frameworks and so on. Exploratory sequential means first collecting the qualitative data, then merging with quantitative data at the next stage. So another one, a lot of research questions that I've seen use the words to what extent, all right? To what extent just is about descriptive nature of the study, all right? It's about descriptive studies. Like normally the answer to this question is just some percentages I mean, frequencies, percentages, descriptive statistics, simple descriptive statistics, not even inferential. So I mean, we should know what kind of answer we are expecting from the question that we are asking in our proposal, right? Like how is going to be answered by addressing the process, how, or addressing the quality, or why is going to be answered by providing justifications, okay? What is going to be answered by specifying or identifying something, while on the other hand, to what extent is going to be answered by providing the measurement or the magnitude of something. Like you're gonna say 60% of people think like that, 20% think like this, you see? And to what extent? All right, another one, because in quantitative research, sometimes we have hypotheses. In qualitative research, we don't have hypotheses. Yeah, one common mistake I've seen recently that there was a hypothesis in qualitative research. Nothing like that can happen. So only in quantitative research and mixed method research, because it does have a component of quantity as well, we have hypothesis. So hypotheses, of course, have to be about accuracy. They have to be very accurate. They have to be very measurable and testable, right? So specific testable statement or prediction about the expected relations of variables. Now, one common mistake that happens in formulating hypotheses is that they are formulated based on either biased assumptions or the authors or researchers' personal assumptions, rather than relying on the literature, because we cannot simply formulate a hypothesis uh, out of nowhere. Okay, it has to be based on some evidence from either the case studies or the previous studies or our observation with claim that are supported with evidence, right? Because hypothesis means we are having some assumption, but this assumption doesn't simply just fall from the sky. All right, it has a foundation in the previous studies. So we should try to avoid this mistake of simply formulating hypotheses based on our own judgment or our own interpretation of whatever we think. It should be based on empirical data. Second, formulate based on existing theories or prior research. And next, guide the research process by establishing what the researcher intends to prove or disapprove, right? Actually, that is the definition of hypothesis as well, because we are eventually what we are trying to do in hypothesis formulation is to say that this relationship exists or not exist, or is significant, not significant, right? Either we keep the hypothesis or approve the hypothesis or reject the hypothesis by using statistical or numeric data, right? Statistical procedures. Now, there are two types of hypothesis. Null hypothesis, usually shown with HO, right? When there is, you propose that there is no relationship between the dependent and independent variable. Like example, there is no significant relationship between X and Y. Alternative hypothesis, on the other hand, suggest that there is a relationship or effect between the variables, right? There is a significant positive relationship between X and Y. This is called alternative hypothesis. So we have to choose the best one that aligns with ours, okay? That means if you want to go a bit further, you're not just looking at whether there is a relationship or not, but you want to also look into the relationship is negative or positive if there is a significant relationship, right? So it should be in line with your objective as well. Now, these are the characteristics or features of hypothesis, like alignment with research question, clarity and specificity, measurable variables, and direction, right? When writing or formulating hypothesis, pay attention to this direction, okay? Because also recently, I noticed that the students simply propose the positive relationship between the variables. Okay, but when I thought about it, when I reviewed the literature, actually I noticed the relationship should be negative, or at least the assumption to be tested, the hypothesis should be the positive to a negative one, not the positive one, you know? So we have to consider the importance and the impact of the literature, the previous studies, and the and the empirical data that we have in formulating hypotheses to not make it so biased. These are examples of clear hypotheses. For example, a null hypothesis, first one, there is no relationship between using AI tools and EFL learners' academic writing. Second one is alternative. There is a significant positive relationship between using AI tools and EFL learners' academic writing. Okay, so this can be answered with these procedures like correlation analysis, like Pearson correlation coefficient, if data distributed normally, or Spearman rank correlation if the data is not normally distributed. Or regression analysis by use of simple linear regression to predict a dependent variable, here academic writing performance based on the independent variable, the use of AI tools by assessing the strength and nature of their relationship. Another way to answer the two hypotheses here is the t-test and ANOVA, right? T-test, example, independent sample t-test, if we categorize the EFL learners into two groups, like those who use AI and those who don't use AI, right? To just compare their academic scores and see if there is any significant difference. Yeah, and ANOVA, analysis of variance, if there are multiple levels of AI tool use. For example, no use, moderate use, that means average use, or high use, so much use, right? So different levels of usage. When you have this use, can be analyzed by ANOVA to compare means across these groups. One note here is that the content and data are only for exemplification purpose here, right? That means these are just for your learning here. Two additional points for you to not make any mistakes in formulating your hypothesis or test is that the choice of statistical test is going to depend on the data distribution, measurement levels of the variables, and the specific nature of the hypothesis, right? Data distribution, measurement levels of the variables, and the specific nature of the hypothesis. So it is important to conduct some preliminary tests like normality tests, such as visual inspection and statistical tests, to decide whether the analysis method is appropriate or not. But of course, we always need to consult statistic books in our field, because there are statistics for in every discipline usually. But generally, there are also books that talk about SPSS analysis, SEM models, and so on, for quantitative research. We can rely on those and choose the best method by citing them. In terms of software tools, this can be performed by using software such as SPSS, R, Python, or even Excel, but we have to know what built-in functions they have to answer these tests. Now, other types of hypotheses that can happen for multivariable interactions or relationships, right? So, of course, this is about the complex factors. Now, if you want to understand this easily, you can have a look at this model here. I mean, the arrow that is here, like AI tools usage, right? EFL learners academic writing performance. So this is the moderation, right? So the arrow is up. We usually show this with the arrow towards up direction, parental involvement. Now let's read this and see what moderator is, or moderation, with example. The influence of parental involvement complicates the direct relationship between AI tool use and EFL learners academic writing performance. Okay, So the hypothesis for this will be the relationship between the use of AI tools and EFL learners' academic performance, right, as you can see here, is significantly moderated by what? By parental involvement. So here, parental involvement is the moderator. Parental involvement moderates the relationship between AI use and writing performance. So, but what does this mean actually? It means the higher levels of parental involvement strengthen. That means the higher parents are involved, right? The stronger the relationship between AI and the learner's AI use and the learner's writing performance, in simple words, right? It makes sense. Another one is mediator. In formulating hypothesis, we need to pay attention to this because I see a lot of mistakes in this regard. Example here, the role of anxiety levels as a mediator adds another layer of analysis, okay? Hypothesis one, anxiety levels mediate the relationship between the use of AI tools and EFL learners' academic writing performance. Now, what does this mean? If you look at this model or these arrows, you will see, okay? AI tools usage leads to anxiety levels. That leads to EFL learners' academic writing performance. That's the difference between moderator and mediator, right? So in this example, increased use of AI tools leads to lower anxiety levels, right? Increased use of tools. That means the more we use AI tools, the less anxiety we have. Then that less anxiety will lead to better academic performance in this hypothesis. Okay, so that is how is formulated. So I think we just need to know the difference and formulate properly, and later when we want to use the software, we apply the right one. So I added some additional points for you. A moderator affects the strength or direction of the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. So test by hierarchical multiple regression analysis, or SEM, structural equation modeling. The mediator is about explaining the how or why one variable affects another. So one test can be Baron and Keynes 4 steps, or even SEM, all right? Or actually, you can consult statisticians regarding these as well. So the next part that I'm going to talk about is about significance of the study in writing the proposal. This is very important. The word significance already means importance, right? So in simple words, you're gonna convince the reader that your study is so important, okay? But important in what ways? Now, normally you can divide this section into two parts, not necessarily by creating subsections, because some schools or some journals have their own format, so you cannot create more subsections. But in terms of content, you can talk about the theoretical significance and then practical significance, okay? Like examples that you can read here while I'm explaining. But mainly you are telling the readers that what your study is adding, not just saying that, yeah, my study adds to the knowledge, but what specifically and how, who can use your findings, in what situation, right? If, for example, you're saying engineers can use my findings, in which situation, for what products? If you are saying educationalists or education policymakers can use this, in what context? Is it applicable to all contexts or a specific context? For what kind of people? What kind of learners, if it's education, right? So try to provide some examples as evidence of similar studies that have been done to at least justify your claims. In significance of the study, we don't have so many references as we do in the problem statement, but providing at least a few is ideal, is good enough to justify. All right. Avoid mistakes like saying just finishing a sentence like this. This study is very important, full stop. You see? Why? I mean, this is a redundant sentence or semantically void. All right, there is no content in such kind of sentences because I've seen a lot of this kind of mistakes. Yeah, simply saying this study is important, full stop. This study is very significant, or this study is very invaluable. First of all, we cannot measure that to say that this is so invaluable. But what I'm trying to say is that instead of saying that this study is important, just talk about the importance itself. All right, there's no need for redundant words and repetitions. All right. Other things that you can talk about is about the academic impact. Yeah, because anyway, we are in academia. Your research is going to have some academic impact, either in terms of the empirical data that you find, you analyze, and you reach some conclusion. You have some findings to offer to the readers. So for researchers in academia and so on, you can offer something. Policy or practice relevance. This I already mentioned, especially for policymakers, you can offer some suggestions or guidelines, right? You can say that this study might offer, can offer, right? Of course, we are at the proposal writing stage. You cannot say that it will definitely, but it's will try to, right? So also try to be a bit conservative in terms of using the modular verbs or I mean the auxiliary verbs, right? Like should, could, will, the degree of certainty, we have to be a bit careful about that. Because too much confidence in writing such sentences could get us in trouble in certain ways, because they would say, how are you so sure? Yeah. Next, beneficiaries of the study. That means, in simple words, means who will mostly benefit from your study, right? You're talking about certain communities or type of learners, even teachers, educators, engineers, scientists, right? Patients, nurses, who will mostly benefit, and how, all right? Talk about how. And then advancement of models, approaches, and theories. Like one significance of the study can be that you verify a theory or validate a model, in your context. So that adds to the value of the study and adds to the significance of the study. So basically, you can try to address this main categories: theoretical and practical potential implications, or what's called significance. But more or less, you can actually talk about all these components that I show here, and you can read these examples by yourself there too. All right, next important thing is about the operational definitions. A common mistake is that operational definitions are quite vague or ambiguous, all right? Or another big mistake is that there are too many definitions in operational definition section or definition of keyword section. What this means, like there is one word, okay, self-efficacy. Okay, but the operational definition section defining self-efficacy provides 5 different definitions. That's a mistake, because which one you are adopting, which one you are using, okay? So normally what you can do in defining key terms or definition of key term section in a proposal, you can divide it into operational definition section and conceptual definition section, all right, subsection. So first, usually conceptual, that means the general definition of the term by referring to a source, and then followed by operational definitions. In operational definition, you will say, in the present study, self-efficacy refer to what? AI tool refer to what? Okay, so that is your operationalization of that term in your study. Okay, so conceptual definition, operational definition, under definition of keywords. So mistake is using too many definitions, using ambiguous definitions or unmeasurable definitions, using inaccurate definitions, and not providing the page numbers. Okay, for definitions, always remember to provide the page number, not just the date, source I mean the author and the date, but also the page number that you are taking the definition. So these operational definitions mostly should be contextual based, measurable. They should be consistent, avoid jargons, and avoid the use of dictionaries as a source in defining key terms. Okay, because we use dictionary for general English knowledge, general language knowledge, not for academic knowledge, yeah? You are supposed to provide the operational definitions from academic sources, not dictionaries. That's also another mistake that is quite common as well. Or citing Wikipedia, this kind of thing. We can never cite Wikipedia or even dictionaries, yeah, for defining operation key terms because they have to be academic sources. All right. Yeah. As I said, one tip for you, as you can see in this uh, gold color here, use in present this study research. That means say in the present study, AI tool refers to what? In the present study, self-efficacy refers to what? Okay, refers to, I don't know, Anderson's definition, 1997, blah, 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 right? So in this study, that's the one. Okay, you build your study based on that definition. All right. So in writing the proposal, chapter 1 and 3 are the most important parts, but of course, literature reviews there too. Uh, the common mistake in writing literature reviews that the themes are organized haphazardly, not systematically. That's a key problem, right? So literature review has to be organized thematically. And you should usually start with a review of the previous studies and the synthesis of the previous studies, followed by, usually we also put concept, a theoretical framework at the end of chapter 2. Yeah. So some disciplines also encourage putting conceptual framework in chapter 2 as well, but mostly we put conceptual framework in chapter 3. So anyway, uh, try to organize literature review based on the themes of your study. The themes are based on like review of the concepts and the variables. Most important thing is synthesizing the information. That means other than reviewing the previous literature, also synthesize and integrate the information and come up with some conclusion or summary at the end. Another tip that I can give you, and as suggested by John Creswell, is coming out with a literature map. I always encourage my students to do that. A literature map is like the map that can contain all the studies in your study in your research under some subcategories and boxes, right? You can classify your studies and place them into these boxes. So it can at least give you the clear idea. So let's read this common mistake: repeating general information from sources without critically analyze them. Yeah, like yeah, many of the examiners usually complain that the literature review is just a repetition. It's too long, but just a repetition of what other people say. It shouldn't be like that, actually. We need to critically summarize. Critically means look at the pros and cons, positives and negatives. We go back and forth, compare and contrast, and then we try to synthesize as much as possible. So moving on, in the methodology section, we're supposed to of course, decide about a very clear research design and method of data collection, analysis, sampling methods, and the rationale of choosing them, right? Number one is our philosophy, then research design and methodology. These three components are very important in deciding our method in their study. Now, one common mistake is to fail to explain why you have chosen a specific methods. That means we simply say, I'm going to use action research. Okay, why? No justification provided. Or sometimes the terminology are used wrongly, like the word qualitative, quantitative, mixed method. These words are designs. These are not methods. Okay, so we should be able to differentiate this terminology as well, and use them properly to avoid such mistakes. Okay, in conceptual framework, a common mistake can be not linking the ideas in the theoretical framework, not linking the not associating the theories, yeah, how they are related. We simply provide one or two or three theories without explaining how they are related and what makes us to choose them specifically, right? Because there are many theories and models out there. Our theoretical framework must provide the reason um, why also we are using them. Both visually, that means in the diagram that you design, also narratively in terms of explaining. Yeah, this is also a common mistake if not addressed properly. So with that, I come to the conclusion. In writing a research proposal, of course, writing a research proposal, we need a few days of full workshops, right? Full day workshops. But yeah, in 90 minutes, this is the best that we can cover. But yeah, in conclusion, I can say clarity is the key. Always use very accurate, measurable language, avoid jargons or complex structures of sentences. Research is not about using fancy words or pompous words, making it so difficult to understand. No, it should be actually very simple, to the point, and clear. Second, be consistent in terms of use of terminology. Also remember that the words that we are using in writing uh, have to be defined clearly. Like, don't simply assume that uh, we can use any synonym, right? Just now I mentioned about impact and influence. In research, they are different, right? Or intervention and treatment. These are different because in different disciplines, they are used differently, okay? Or a participant and a subject, okay? Whichever you use, you stick to that. Like in psychology, they use the word subject for the participants, yeah? For others, usually we use participant. So anyway, we need to be consistent. Proofreading, yeah, of course, any grammatical mistake or punctuation, stylistic mistake is going to have a bad impression on the evaluator or examiner about our integrity in making sure that our product, our writing is good. And then tailoring to the audience, okay? I think it's very important to consider who we are writing for, okay? Who we are writing for. Consider the audience and their level of expectations, okay? Uh, and be realistic. Don't overpromise what your research can achieve, all right? That means don't be too ambitious, but also don't be don't be not so ambitious. Yeah, like if the research questions are too simple and then too basic or plain, I would say maybe the PhD, that's not up to a PhD level, right? But the opposite can also be problematic, like you become too ambitious in a way that it drags forever and never ends, and it tires you out, yeah? So don't be too ambitious and don't go for like too simple research. So this is just a detailed format from Cresswell 2019 for writing a paper. This one for qualitative. I'm just gonna show you for a few seconds and move on. Because you're gonna have the slides anyway. And then this one, a detailed quantitative format, again from Cresswell. Obviously, this one, in quantitative, we have more sections, yeah? Don't forget that in any research proposal, we must have an ethical consideration sections, okay? This is unfortunately forgotten. Even if you are doing text analysis, we should have a section addressing any potential ethical consideration. But normally, ethical consideration is about the research that involves human or animals, all right? But when we are dealing a text, let's say, or we want to use an instrument, like, do we really have the permission to simply use that instrument, even though we paid for that instrument, right? We buy it online. We cannot simply attach it to our thesis and publish it everywhere because that is copyrighted. Okay, so how to address this and how to get the permission, or about the consent forms that we may need to get from, let's say, young participants, guardians and parents. Important. We cannot simply, as a teacher, go and collect data from even our own class. We need to get the permission from if they are school students, underage, that means under legal age, we have to get the permission, consent form from their parents or guardians. Okay, so anyway, all these must be addressed. And in the appendices, always provide the instruments. Yeah, this is the detail mix method format, and you can see, of course, this is a lot more complex. Basically, mixed method design in proposal or paper, you're going to have the components of both, obviously, right? The quantity, the quality. You repeat the same procedure in detail, and it's going to be a lot lengthier, but any mixed method study has much, much higher level than value than, single method study, single design study, like only quality or only quantity, right? Obviously, because you have multiple sources of information or data. So that's all from me. The main sources I used for today's talk is Johnson and Christensen, 2014, Creswell, 2014 as well, Creswell and Gutterman, 2012. So I recommend you read this when you are free, if you haven't. And that will be all from me. Okay, so these are my contact details.
Now the session is open for Q&A. If there is any questions from the participant side, you may ask now.
Is there any questions in the chat box?
Greetings to everybody. I'm George Kambonge.
Hi, Mr.
From
George.
Zambia. I'm okay, thank you.
Hi.
I am from Zambia, and it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for this wonderful session.
All right. You're welcome.
I'm pursuing a PhD on the environmental justice dynamics and the conservation of natural resources.
Okay.
Now the question is on some specific objectives. I want to include one objective that looks at some costs and benefits that are realized within some communities. How do I come up with, how do I collect data? Then analyze the same data. Probably this should be a quantitative objective. So what is the best possible way of collecting data and probably analyze it?
Analyzing that. Okay. What is your overall design of your study? Have you gone for qualitative? Have you decided about quality or quantity or mixed method?
I am tilted towards the qualitative study. Yes, so there are about 3 objectives that are qualitative in nature. So I'm going to decide whether to remove this objective and replace it with a qualitative type, or maintain it and later turn the study into a mixed method. Can it be a mixed method if I maintain the objective, or can it be a qualitative study?
Okay. Thank you for the question. So I think the answer to this question depends on the feasibility of the study. That means whether or not it's possible to get both quality and quantity data. Of course, if you can get both, that is the best. All right. If you can use survey questionnaire and you can use, for example, interviews to answer the research question using this, I mean, multiple sources of data such as questionnaire and interview or observation or even document analysis. All right. Document analysis is also a valid form of qualitative research, no problem. So that you can triangulate them. Triangulation means combine and integrate them. So why not? Ideal is always mixed method. Yeah, that's ideal. But sometimes it's not feasible. Like you may not find an enough number of participants, or you cannot get enough number of people to give you the permission. For things like that, then people will go for quali. But philosophically speaking, the purpose of quali is different from quanti. Yeah. Purpose of quali is for in-depth analysis. Purpose of quanti is to prove something. So you need to think about it. Are you trying to prove something, or you're trying to discover more, or you are trying to do both? If you are trying to do both, of course, mixed method is the answer. If you are trying to only explore and dig more in depth, only quali is enough. If you are trying to only prove something, that means say something is right or wrong, only quanti is enough. Okay?
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome, no problem.
Any other questions from the participant side? You may raise your hands. Dear doctor, I put a question in your chat box. It was asked by one of our participant. Kindly check it, doctor.
All right, okay, I'm scrolling down. Okay, I think the first question from Mr. Eddie, right? Does every research have the include previous research related to the title? How many should be included according to research standard? Well, in terms of number of words, 12 to 15 words is enough, standard, yeah? 12 words. So 12 to 15, around that. But if I get your first question properly, because it's not very grammatical, does every research have the include previous research related to the title? I think you mean, does every research have to include previous literature? Of course, yeah, we need to do literature review related to the variables of the study or the constructs or the concepts that we have in the title, all right? So you move from the generic to specific one. Next question. Novelty same as research gap? No. Novelty is what you are going to offer to fill in that research gap. All right. Maybe there is no model, there is no module, there is no instrument, right? Novelty is when you come up and design that. Okay. But yes, they can be relevant, but they are not the same. Okay, I'm gonna go next. Okay, next one from Dr. Noor Suryana. Do we need to use problem, intervention, comparison, or control and outcome to construct the RQ? Well, that's the model that you can use as well. But I think the most important thing in writing a research question is that it is, number one, specific. Number two, it is measurable. Number three, it is very clear, not too long, and not too overwhelming, right? And do not use multiple or double questions in a research question. This is also another common mistake, yeah? Like they say the relationship between A and B and something, you know, more than one relationship. Don't go for that. Like just break it down into different RQs. But yeah, that model is also acceptable. Okay, next, let me see. Dr. Shahzad, I just said that the number of research objectives and research questions must be equal in number, but in my opinion, research objective is broader in scope and not directly measurable. Therefore, we have to break it down into a couple of research questions to make them measurable. Want to know your opinion on this? Well, thank you for your comment. I think the number of research questions and the number of objectives, of course, have to be always in line. But maybe what you are talking about here is the research aim or purpose. The general aim, yes, we have one general aim or one general purpose, but the objectives um, have to be in line with the research questions, right? Even though the objective maybe consists of two parts, you have sub-objectives, then in RQ also should be aligned. So based on my observation and the examination session that I've been hearing from other examiners as well, they will usually question if the number is different. So that is my opinion, but of course I respect yours as well. Okay, I'm scrolling down. All right. Again, one more question. Mostly researchers choose quantitative research studies in general and experimental studies in specific. Due to increasing number of experimental studies using there is no significant differences, control groups, experimental groups, and like other design-related terms and phrases increase the similarity index. So what to do to solve this issue? I mean, if this is one problem attached with experimental design. I get what you're trying to say here. Like, you mean the similarity index, like what we get in, let's say, analyzing with Turnitin and so on, right? It's possible. What you can do here is try to include more variables. Because the problem is that I mean, some students usually just change one of the variable in the previous study and apply in their own context, right? Of course, if this is done, the similarity index will be very high. So try to go for the latest trendy variables that are less explored, or at least the relationship between them, the variables are less explored. So there is more novelty in the study as well. Yeah. But there is no other way to do this because, of course, there are certain terminologies or phrases that will be captured in Turnitin software or authenticate software, any software used for similarity check. Yeah. So yeah, one way is to, of course, try to paraphrase, try to use more, I mean, different variables, try to add more variables to increase your significance of the study level, and also, yeah, maybe lessen the similarity. I think so. Okay, Dr. Mansur Ali Darazi, thank you. I'm a clinician, family physician, precisely, and I want to start writing and publishing, but I realize it's not as easy as expected. Is there any way you can encourage us? Are there non-expensive peer-reviewed journals you could recommend, especially for researchers from low and middle-income countries? All right, this of course you can publish. In fact, in your fields, I think even reviews have a lot much better values than maybe other fields because you're coming from science background. Yeah. So even you can write review papers or systematic review papers, meta-analysis, or even any evidence-based research that you have can be published. And of course, you don't have to go for predatory journals and so on. You can go definitely for good journals. There are free versions, there are paid versions. I think Quvae also provides such service. You can later ask them. But yeah, there are different types. Yeah, it depends what you are aiming for, like what indexation you are aiming for. You are aiming for WOS and what type of indexation, or you are aiming for Scopus and what quartile, right? Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. That means the quality of the journal that you are looking into. So based on that and your budget, you can decide. Some journals are also free, some are paid. Normally the paid ones are a bit faster. Free ones are gonna take longer, but there are pros and cons, yeah? But what matters is that we should not publish in predatory journals, right? The only money-based journals that are blacklisted. That is what we should really try to avoid, because they have no academic integrity in terms of reviewing the papers. All right, but surely you can publish, yeah? All right, next question. Please explain the difference between theoretical framework and conceptual framework, how to contribute theoretically. All right, in short, of course, this question itself is a 2 hours lecture, if I want to explain in detail. But overall, a conceptual framework is what you are exactly measuring, is what exactly you are trying to do. All right, in a conceptual framework, you have the concepts in the boxes, right? You are specifically telling the reader, this is my concepts, and this is the relationship between the concepts, and this is how I'm going to measure them, right? Specify the concepts very accurately, not sentences and so on, not theories. In conceptual framework, we just put the concepts, okay? And usually from left to right. Left to right is more common in the diagram. You can put from the left to right, and the one box at the very right side is the output of the study in the conceptual framework. So I repeat, a conceptual framework tells the reader what exactly you are investigating, the concepts, okay? On the other hand, theoretical framework or theoretical underpinning or theoretical background or theoretical framework, different scholars use different words, yeah? For in this framework or background, obviously you just talk about the theory. You place the name of the theory itself and the author of the theory, the owner of the theory, and then with some lines or arrows, you show the relationship between the theory and contextualize it in your study, like how they, in the explanation under that diagram, which is usually from top to bottom, right? I said conceptual is from left to right, yeah, usually. Theoretical framework usually is from top to bottom. We start, we place the theories on top in the boxes, and then with the arrows, we show the relationship, either arrow or just straight line with no direction. Then again, you have the output box. But we should see the name of the theories in the theoretical framework and the contextualization in the study. That is the main difference between them. How to contribute theoretically? Of course, every study should have some theoretical contribution as well. That means like future researchers can use your study, can build their study on yours. For example, you can offer them some suggestions theoretically what they can do. Like, for example, they can build, they can continue doing another study based on your study in their own context. Okay, you are theoretically contributing to them. Okay, moving on. Next question, how to frame objectives and hypotheses in mixed method research design? Okay, very good question, this one. Because hypothesis is only for the quantitative research, right? So we don't have hypothesis for the quali part, okay? So just provide the objectives and then provide the research question. Then you, following that, you provide the hypothesis. So just like I said, you have the research questions for the quali and the quanti, but only hypothesis for the quanti. Eventually, what we are going to do is the triangulation of the results, right? Comparison of the answers to the research questions from the quali with the quanti ones to answer our main parts, right? To answer our main objective, to address our main objective or answer our main question. So basically they are in line again, But in mixed method, because we have two levels, right? Two levels. And then we have the triangulation phase at the end. If we really conduct a mixed method, we should triangulate the data as well. So yeah, I hope I answered that question. And next, Dr. Noor Suriana, you're welcome. Okay, Shahzad Ahmed, like to replace experimental group with treatment group. Okay, I don't understand this one because it's incomplete sentence. Can you elaborate on this a bit, Mr. Shahzad? Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, last question is it correct to rename the conceptual to theoretical framework where all the relationships have been supported by underpinning theories? I have seen this in some studies, but you know, it depends on the template that the faculties and the universities follow or the journals follow, okay? In fact, in some thesis, I have seen they only have just one theoretical framework or just one conceptual framework. They don't necessarily have. And another thing is that actually having a conceptual framework is not necessary for qualitative research. You know this? Because it's optional. It's optional. If you provide a conceptual framework in qualitative research, you are just doing something additional. So, because the nature of qualitative research, as I said, is to explore. When you have a conceptual framework, you are predetermining the ways, exact ways that you want to analyze. While in qualitative research, we are very flexible. We can be flexible to the extent that we even increase the number of interviewees or change the, I don't know, direction of data collection, right? Because the purpose, the philosophy is different. So one thing is that conceptual framework is not compulsory to have in qualitative research in general. Second is that we can have, depending on the school or institution, allows this kind of integration. For me, is okay, but like maybe some institutions or faculties want you to follow the template. You must have theoretical framework, you must have conceptual framework, all right? But technically, as I said, I have seen studies that only have one framework. They integrate theoretical and conceptual framework together. All right, next question from Hong. All right, Mr. or Miss Hong. Ethical issues. Okay, what's the question about ethical issues? You mean you want me to talk about ethical issues in general?
Any other questions from the participant side? Kindly ask now. Please raise your hands.
I think there's a question from Mr. or Miss Hong, but I cannot read the question. Just says ethical issues. I put the question to Aqua. What? I don't really understand this.
Dear participants, you can ask your questions now.
Yes, madam. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mr. Krishna. Yes, go ahead. Hello?
Sir, is it audible? Sir, is it audible?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, madam. Madam, my doubt is how to frame the objectives for Objectives and hypothesis were regarding mixed method research, madam. Sir, is
Okay.
it audible? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is my doubt.
Okay. How to
Yes.
frame research objectives and hypothesis
Hypothesis
in?
regarding mixed method research.
Okay, yes. All right, thank you for the question. I think
Okay.
I kind of explained it just now, but I will try to summarize and repeat a bit again. Um, Actually, the best source for you to read to formulate the mixed method research design, research questions and hypothesis, I can recommend John Creswell's book, the ones that I showed you just now, okay?
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I received the last week. I received the book.
Yes.
Criswell.
But there's
Criswell.
a yes, because there is a
Yes.
procedure for that in formulating this. There are so many factors involved, such as the type of participants, the type of relationship, the confounding variables, the control variables, So based on your study, we can develop this. Each study can be different, okay? But I think if you read that book and following your own study context and the variables, participant types, the confounding variables, control variables, experiment variable, then you can decide, yeah, based on that, how to formulate. So you need to also decide whether it's going to be a null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. You need a moderation, you need a mediation for multiple variables and so on, okay? So it depends on your study and many other factors that you can read in that book. All right. So next, is it ethical if the researcher uses their students' writing samples and analyze grammatical mistakes without telling the students about this research, without asking for the students' permission to use their paper? Is it ethical if the researcher uses their students' writing samples and analyze grammatical mistakes without? Do you mean that the researcher publishes that? Or use the analysis for maybe teaching in the class and so on? Hmm? I mean, if it is published, of course, you need the permission from the student, right? The researcher need to get the permission from the participants of the study, okay, if it's for publication. But maybe if it is analyzed and just for use in the classroom for learning, teaching and learning purpose, it's okay because that is nothing publicized, right? But technically, yes. Even if they are published, of course, the researcher cannot use their students' real names, yeah? Normally, we use pseudonyms or nicknames or number the participants, yeah? But yeah, of course, we do need the permission technically. Reporting the result as a seminar. Yeah, same thing. Yes, definitely you need the permission. Yeah. But I know sometimes some researchers don't do this, but yeah, ethically, we need to get the permission. First from the school principal, the management, that means like the people, the authorities, and second from the participants. If they are underage, from their parents and their guardians, okay? Because
Yes,
this,
sir. My another doubt is what is the mediator variable and moderator variable?
okay. Were you not here when I explained? Or you want me to
Yes, sir.
explain again?
What?
Do you want me to explain again? Or because like I
I don't
explained?
know, sir.
Okay.
So I'm asking you.
All right. No problem.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Let me try to share my screen again.
Okay. Okay.
All right, because I did have some content on mediation and moderation. Okay, so let me show you here. Okay, you can also look
Yes,
at
sir.
the
Yes, sir.
examples. All right, look at this arrows here. Do you see this one? I will use this example to explain, all right? Like the parental involvement moderates significantly the relationship between AI tool use and EFL learners' academic writing performance. So in this example, it means the higher the levels of parental involvement, okay, the higher this one, if this one goes up, okay, the relationship between AI tool use and performance becomes stronger. You understand? So the moderator is actually about the strengths and direction. Strengths and direction of the relationship. Okay, that's moderation. Mediation, on the other hand, is not about strengths or direction. It's about the how and why. How and why. One variable affects the other one. Like in this example, I said AI tool usage leads to less anxiety. Okay, AI tool use cause the person to have less anxiety. That less anxiety, low anxiety, causes the learner to have better performance. Okay, so AI use goes up, anxiety goes down, EFL performance, writing performance goes up. Okay, here we say,
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
here we say anxiety level, this one, mediates the relationship between the use of AI and academic performance. Okay, so the main difference is about strengths and direction and how and why. All right.
Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, there are more questions.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I think there are two questions in the chat box. Let me answer them first, then I'll get back to you. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Is it ethical if we use syllabi in university website for data without asking for permission for teacher who wrote the syllabi? Any syllabus that is shared publicly for public use, we can use them without permission, okay? Because that is publicized. But when you use, we have to acknowledge that. That means we have to provide the source that we downloaded those documents, okay? So provided that that is shared publicly, as you say, on the university website. Okay, that means everyone can use it. Everyone can republish it, but cite it. That means you say source, the university website, okay? But if it's not publicized, definitely we need to get the written permission. Next one, my question is that in experimental research, the terms like experimental group, control group, independent variables come repeatedly and raise the similarity index, but we have no alternative for them. So how to avoid similarity? Well, I don't think similarity is mainly because of these words. Similarity is mainly because of, literature review, because of not paraphrasing enough, because of not using quotation marks, page numbers, and so on. That's why actually universities usually allow you to have, I don't know, 10% similarity, 20% similarity. Why? Because they understand that there are certain words that are going to be definitely captured by the system, right? So in fact, these things like experimental group, control group, you have no choice to avoid them because there are terminologies. We cannot repeat, change the terminologies. I mean, maybe you can use short forms, like instead of saying independent variable, you say IV, or you use abbreviations for the terminologies. But I don't think this is going to be so much of in similarity. The main reason for similarity is definitely not paraphrasing enough, not using page number quotation marks for direct quotations, and not providing the source for certain portions of the text. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's between 10 to 20. Journals are a lot more strict are a lot more strict about index similarity index. Yeah, good journals, top journals, usually even below 5%. Even 10% is a lot for a top journal, good journal. But depends. Yeah, it's depend on the institution and the journal. Yes, sir. Somebody was asking a question. I think that could be our last question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My question was that I submitted a research article in one of the Elsevier journal, and uh, it took 2 months for review process. After that, editor sent me the decision, revise and resubmit. I revised every comment and resubmitted. Then after 2 months, the editor gave me the decision reject and with referee comments. According to me, when I studied the referee comments, the referee wrote that you did not write the basic definition of your study. How anyone can write a research paper without basic definition? Even I wrote the definition in the first line of the preliminaries. When I sent the reply to the editor, I said, why you did not send this paper to the relevant researcher? According to me, editor sent the paper to the irrelevant person and he did not study. He wrote bad and irrelevant comments. After that, he said, I am stand with editorial decision. I cannot do something. You should submit it in any other journal. What should be the possible solutions about this strategy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for your question.
Yeah. Yes.
I have experienced something like that before as well. I think the main reason, as you say, if you do the corrections and then you get rejected, there could be two reasons, right? Either we did not do the corrections properly, or the reviewers were not really from that line of research. They didn't not have much content knowledge, and they simply reviewed in a very fast way, right? So now what's the solution for this? Number one solution is that we have to, be a bit tolerant and move on. Okay. My experience is that don't send to that journal again. All right. So another way is that you can communicate this. If you think this is unfair, you can communicate with the journal editor, provide the evidence and your justification. If they accept, then sometimes they can consider, but it's very rare, maybe less than 5%. They can reconsider after maybe after rejected, almost never reconsidered, unless the mistake is from their side, technical issue and so on. But yeah, it is possible, but you shouldn't get disappointed because, yeah, every journal has their own editor, it depends. Sometimes, in many cases, actually, I have noticed also, especially in moderate or average journals, the decision can be subjective, right? Sometimes they have uh, the area or the discipline in their scope, but you send them your paper there, they will tell you it's not in our scope, even though it's exactly in the scope. But because they have a big number of submission, they need to reject for some reason, okay? Even though your paper is very good, they still need to reject 80%, 70%, 60%. So they need a reason, okay? So sometimes they provide general reasons, like not in the scope, or the language is weak, or grammatical mistake, not following the template, these kind of things, or other things. But sometimes it can be due to not addressing the comments as well properly. Yeah, sometimes the editor or the reviews are too strict. They want to make sure, like I had the experience when I was a student. I did 12 rounds of revision for a Scopus Index journal. 12 rounds. It took me 2.5 years. Um, to publish that. And it was like writing a PhD thesis on its own, that particular paper. So there are, editors and journals like that. So anyway, if that happens, I would say don't get disappointed. But if they do not accept your justification, maybe you should not submit to that journal again. Yeah. But at least the good thing is that they reviewed in 2 months. Sometimes you have to wait 1 or 2 years, and you cannot even submit elsewhere, right? You cannot do double submission. So yeah, I don't know. I hope my comment helps a bit.
I hope there is no more questions from the participant side. So let's wind up the session now. Thank you so much, Doctor. It was an informative session for us. Thank you so much once again, Doctor.
Welcome. And I need to apologize again for my voice because of my sore throat today. So anyway, I hope it was helpful to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. An important information to the participants, you will receive your webinar participation certificate within 7 to 10 working days. Thank you all.